An overweight woman is humiliated and prevented from entering a restaurant just for being fat. But her reaction shocked everyone. The night was cold and damp when Amanda parked her car in front of the renowned restaurant La Bella Vita. The golden lights reflected off the wet asphalt, creating an elegant glow that contrasted with the insecurity she felt. Amanda weighed 162 kilos and knew that, for many people, her mere presence in certain spaces was seen as an affront. But that night she didn't care, or at least she tried not to care. She got out of the car with some difficulty, adjusting the burgundy dress that hugged her curvy figure. The fabric stretched over her wide hips and prominent belly, but Amanda liked that dress. It made her feel beautiful. With firm steps, she walked toward the restaurant entrance, ignoring the gaze of a couple leaving, who looked at her with surprise, as if they hadn't expected to see a woman of her size there. Upon entering, she was greeted by the aroma of fresh herbs and truffle sauce. The dining hall exuded sophistication, with crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling and elegantly dressed waiters gliding between the tables. Amanda walked up to the reception desk, where a tall, thin man with a snobbish air was flipping through a reservation book. "Good evening. I have a reservation under Amanda Noguera." The maître, identified by his name tag as Felipe, lifted his eyes, and upon seeing Amanda, his expression changed. He scanned her from head to toe, his eyes lingering on her round face, thick arms, protruding stomach, and wide hips that seemed to challenge the fabric of her dress. His hesitant look said more than any words. Noguera. He furrowed his brow as if struggling to find the name on the list. "Table for one?" She nodded. Felipe pressed his lips together and discreetly glanced at the dining area. Amanda followed his gaze and noticed that there were several available tables. Still, he made no move to lead her to one of them. "One moment, ma'am," he said before quickly disappearing down a hallway. Amanda felt a knot in her stomach. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened to her. She knew exactly what that look meant. The discomfort, the hesitation, the way he seemed to search for an excuse. He didn't want her there. Minutes passed. Other guests arrived and were immediately seated. A couple entered after her and, without needing to wait, was taken to one of the tables by the window. Amanda took a deep breath. The dress that had made her feel beautiful now seemed too tight. She felt watched, judged. She saw a waiter whisper something to a colleague, and both laughed discreetly, stealing quick glances in her direction. Her face burned. She decided to ask again. Approaching the receptionist, a young blonde woman who pretended not to notice her until Amanda cleared her throat, she asked, "Excuse me, is my table ready?" The receptionist hesitated. "Mr. Felipe is checking something. I'll be right back." "Checking what?" Amanda wanted to ask, but she held back. She could feel the weight of the stares, the discreet chuckles, the way some customers whispered when they saw her there, as if a woman of her size was violating some invisible rule. She clenched her fists. She wasn't about to be ignored. Taking a deep breath, she walked determinedly toward the hallway where Felipe had disappeared. He reappeared a few seconds later and widened his eyes upon seeing her there, as if he hadn't expected her to take action. "Is there a problem?" Amanda asked, her voice firm. Felipe forced a smile. "Ma'am, I apologize for the delay. Unfortunately, there was an issue with your reservation in our system." "An issue? What kind of issue?" "We are checking on that." She crossed her arms. "You didn't have issues with the other reservations, just mine." Felipe hesitated. "Well?" He took a deep breath before slightly leaning in to speak in a lower tone. "Management believes this may not be the most suitable environment for you." Amanda blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "We just want to ensure that all our customers have the best experience possible," he said, still with that fake smile. She felt her heart race. "Are you implying that I don't belong here?" Felipe looked away. His silence was more humiliating than any answer. Amanda felt a wave of indignation rise in her chest. She had experienced embarrassing situations before, but this was different. This was clear rejection, as if they were openly saying that her body was a problem. The words were on the tip of her tongue when a new voice emerged behind her. "Is there a problem here?" Amanda turned around and found a tall, well-dressed man looking directly at Felipe. There was something about his presence that made the maître pale slightly. She had no idea who he was, but his presence would change the course of that night in a way no one expected. Amanda couldn't take her eyes off the man now looking at her with curiosity. He wore a well-tailored dark suit, and his posture exuded authority. Felipe, who had maintained an air of superiority until then, suddenly seemed uncomfortable. "Mr. Giovanni!" Felipe stammered, quickly straightening up. Amanda blinked. "Mr. Giovanni?" The name sounded familiar. The man frowned. "What's going on here?" Felipe swallowed hard and cast a quick glance at Amanda before replying, "Nothing, sir. Just a small issue with the lady's reservation." Giovanni crossed his arms. "Issue?" "Yes, a system problem. We are trying to resolve it." Amanda noticed how Felipe's voice had changed. The arrogance he had displayed earlier had evaporated, replaced by evident nervousness. The man turned his gaze to Amanda, assessing the situation. "Do you have a reservation?" Yes," she replied, her voice firm despite the anger burning inside. "But he seems to think I don't belong here." Giovanni's eyes narrowed. He turned back to Felipe. "Is that what happened?" The maître hesitated. I just wanted to ensure that all customers have the best experience possible." Amanda chuckled without humor. "Funny, because I didn't see anyone else being screened before sitting down. Just me." Felipe opened his mouth, but Giovanni raised a hand, silencing whatever excuse he was about to make. "Let me get this straight. You denied this customer entry because—" Felipe was now sweating. "Sir, I just thought—" "You thought wrong!" Giovanni's tone was sharp as a blade. Amanda hadn't expected that. Felipe's eyes widened. "Mr. Giovanni, Go to the office, now!" Felipe didn't argue. He just nodded, pale, and disappeared down the hallway. Amanda crossed her arms, trying to process what had just happened. "Who are you?" she asked, still skeptical. Giovanni sighed and extended his hand. "Giovanni Ricci, owner of La Bella Vita." She hesitated before shaking his hand. "So, you're the boss of the guy who just humiliated me?" He nodded. "Yes, and from what I heard, he made an unacceptable mistake." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "And are you going to do something about it?" Giovanni looked around, noticing how some customers were still casting curious glances their way. Without hesitation, he raised his voice. "I apologize for the inappropriate behavior of our staff. This customer was mistreated unfairly, and that does not reflect La Bella Vita's values." Amanda widened her eyes. Some people exchanged embarrassed glances. The couple that had been whispering before quickly lowered their heads. Giovanni turned to her. "If you still want to dine here, I'd be happy to personally ensure you have the best experience." She hesitated for a moment. Part of her wanted to leave, to tell him the experience was already ruined. But another part— She lifted her chin. "I'd be happy to dine." Giovanni offered a small smile. "Perfect." And without another word, he led her to a table by the window, unaware that this dinner would become much more than just a meal. Amanda settled into the chair, feeling it creak slightly under her weight. It was nothing new to her. At 162 kilos, every seat was a test. Some were comfortable, while others became silent reminders that the world wasn't made for bodies like hers. But sitting there, in front of the restaurant owner, who had just intervened on her behalf, she refused to feel intimidated. Giovanni Ricci sat across from her, keeping a watchful gaze. His features were striking, and his posture exuded natural authority. Amanda realized that he wasn't just a successful businessman, he was someone used to being in control of the situation. "You didn't have to do this," she said, crossing her arms. He tilted his head slightly. "Do what?" "Bring me to this table. Act as if you were really bothered by what happened." Giovanni held her gaze for a moment before responding. "And why do you think I'm not?" Amanda scoffed, playing with the napkin. "Because guys like you only care when someone important is watching. If no one had noticed, I would have been dismissed and sent away as if I didn't even exist." He didn't look away. "You think I'm just protecting the restaurant's image?" "I don't think—" "I know." Giovanni took a deep breath and rested his arms on the table, leaning in slightly. "The truth is, I have no idea how many times this has happened here, and that bothers me." Amanda blinked. She had expected empty apologies, but not this. "So, you never thought about it before?" "To be honest, no." She let out a bitter laugh. "Of course not. You never had to." He didn't argue. "Maybe I didn't have to. But now I'm thinking about it." Amanda studied him for a moment. She still didn't know if she trusted him, but she felt a hint of curiosity. Before she could respond, a waiter approached with a menu. "Order whatever you'd like. Dinner is on the house," Giovanni said, picking up his wine list. Amanda took the menu, but hesitated. "Do you think offering me a free dinner will erase what happened?" He gave a slight smile. "I don't think a free dinner erases anything, but I do think you deserve a good experience tonight." She pondered for a moment before finally deciding to order. She chose a sophisticated dish, but not to impress him. She was simply hungry. Since the incident at the entrance, her stomach had been in knots, and now that the adrenaline was wearing off, hunger was hitting her hard. As they waited for the meal, Giovanni took a sip of wine and observed her again. "Can I ask you a question? If it's a stupid question, I can't promise I'll be polite in my answer." He chuckled. "Fair enough. My question is, how do you deal with this?" She frowned. "Deal with what?" "Situations like today." Amanda took a deep breath, staring at the white tablecloth before answering. "I deal with it because I have no choice. Do you think this was the first time someone made me feel like I didn't belong somewhere? Or that I don't deserve to be in certain spaces?" He remained silent, waiting for her to continue. "Entre, every time I get on a plane, I see the looks of desperation from people hoping I don't sit next to them. In stores, employees follow me around like I can't afford to pay. At doctor's appointments, any health issue I have is always reduced to my weight, as if I'm not a whole person, just a number on a scale." Giovanni didn't look away, and that unsettled her. He didn't seem uncomfortable or eager to justify himself. He was just absorbing her words. Today was just another normal day, Amanda concluded. The waiter returned with their plates, interrupting the moment. The food was impeccable, but Amanda felt that their conversation was far from over. Giovanni picked up his utensils and, before taking his first bite, said, "This needs to change." She laughed, unconvinced. "Good luck with that." He didn't smile. He just looked at her seriously. "I don't rely on luck. I make things happen." And at that moment, Amanda realized that this dinner wasn't just about food. Something was about to change, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. Amanda chewed slowly, letting the refined flavors of the food spread in her mouth. The dish was delicious, worthy of the restaurant's reputation, but despite that, Her mind was still stuck on Giovanni's words. "This needs to change," he repeated, placing his utensils down after his first bite. She raised an eyebrow. "And how exactly do you plan to change it?" He took a sip of wine before responding. "I don't know yet, but what happened today made me realize something. My restaurant, my name, is tied to a problem I never saw before." Amanda let out a short laugh. "You think this only happens here?" "No," he admitted, "but it happens under my roof, and that's enough for me to do something about it." She studied him, trying to decipher him. "You're talking like you're actually taking this seriously." He nodded. "Because I am." She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "And what exactly do you expect from me?" Giovanni smiled. "Nothing, unless you have something to say." She scoffed. "I already told you. This happens all the time. You can't fix the world with a nice speech." "Maybe not, but I can start with my restaurant." Amanda felt an unease growing inside her. The idea that someone with power was actually paying attention, it was new and strangely unsettling. "Are you going to fire that maître?" she asked, testing him. Giovanni ran his tongue over his teeth, thoughtful. "Not immediately," she chuckled lightly. "So, it's just talk." "No, but I want to understand where this attitude came from. If it's a reflection of something ingrained in the restaurant's culture, then I have a bigger problem than just one prejudiced employee." Amanda narrowed her eyes. "Do you really want to dig into this? Because if it's just for show, you shouldn't even start." He held her gaze. "I don't do things halfway." She took a sip of wine, feeling the tension in the air. "And why does this bother you so much? You could have just ignored it and moved on with your life." Giovanni rested his elbows on the table. "Maybe because I have a sister who went through something similar." Amanda blinked, surprised. "What do you mean?" He hesitated before answering. "Helena. She was always bigger than most girls. Since childhood, my family made her feel like she had to lose weight to be accepted. My father was especially cruel. He said no one would ever take a fat woman seriously." Amanda felt a tightness in her chest. "And where is she now?" Giovanni clenched his jaw. "She distanced herself from the family. She hasn't spoken to me in years." Amanda hadn't expected that. "And you feel guilty?" He nodded. "I didn't do anything to stop it. I didn't defend her. I just watched." She took a deep breath. "Maybe it's too late for your sister, but if you really want to change something, you need to be prepared for what comes with it." "And what comes with it?" Amanda looked at him seriously. "Resistance. People will say you're overreacting, that this isn't a real problem, that fat women should just accept that the world isn't made for them." He gave a slight smile. "Then I guess I'm going to need some help." She raised an eyebrow. "Was that a proposal?" "Maybe." Amanda shook her head, laughing. "I came here for dinner, not to become an activist." Giovanni leaned back in his chair. "But you're thinking about it, aren't you?" She didn't answer. But for the first time in a long time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, she could be part of something bigger than herself. And so, Amanda realized that this night had been much more than just a dinner. The prejudice she faced wasn't new, but Giovanni's reaction was unexpected. For the first time, someone with power seemed willing to do something about it. But would he really keep his word, or was this just another empty promise? What happened to Amanda is infuriating, but, unfortunately, it's not an isolated case. Every day, fat people are treated as if they don't belong in certain spaces, as if their presence is an inconvenience. This needs to change, and that change begins when we refuse to accept this kind of discrimination as normal. If you believe that stories like this need to be told and discussed, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. This helps spread this message to more people and shows that no one should be treated this way just because of their body. Share this story and leave a comment. Have you ever experienced something similar? How would you react in Amanda's place? Together, we can give a voice to those who are often silenced.